en este espacio. Es increíble los conferencistas que vamos a tenerle. Tuve la oportunidad ahorita de estar hablando un rato con el siguiente conferencista y creo que de verdad nos va a volar la tapa de los sesos. No tengo otra forma de decírselos. Prepárense, ajusten sus traductores automáticos simultáneos. Hay un challenge allá arriba bien grande para los traductores que están listos para hacer esto. Es una presentación bien interesante. Pero antes, como siempre, nuevamente les pido, por favor, a su izquierda y su derecha están las salidas de emergencia en caso de que algo pase. Y les voy a contar algo chistoso y es, vemos que muchas personas están teniendo problemas escribiendo, teniendo algo. Si cogen la mano derecha de su asiento y meten, hay una tapita que pueden sacar y les va a servir para acomodarse y estar más cómodos. Pongan atención, tomen notas. De verdad, lo que viene aquí a continuación es una cosa muy interesante. Y de verdad que nos va a traer un nuevo reto para los tipos de marketing que están pasando en el mundo. Invitamos a todas las personas que estén afuera, que nos acompañen, a que todo el mundo se siente y esté listo, porque hoy vamos a tener a Robert Tercek, que nos va a hablar de marketing digital si les cuenta la mitad de todo lo que me acaba de contar a mí, creo que van a quedar más que sorprendidos. Él nos habla de interrumpir e innovar en el futuro para poder captar nuevos clientes. Él lo llama vaporized, él lo llama vaporización y les va a contar todo lo que está pasando sobre el futuro de lo mobile, el futuro de los móviles, el futuro de nuestros dispositivos independientes. Él actualmente es un consultor independiente que trabaja con CNN, la NBC, Universal, entre muchos, y ha podido tener la oportunidad de trabajar con Sony, con OWN, que es el network de Oprah, para hacer toda la parte de transmedia y toda la parte digital de estos canales, y además ha trabajado con MTV. Robert es el expresidente de Digital Media del OWN, del Oprah Winfrey Network, y además hoy en día es el presentador de su propio show que se llama Inventing the Future o Inventando el Futuro. La verdad es que él es una de las personas que ha lanzado más contenido digital allá afuera, pero no solamente contenido digital como nosotros lo conocemos a través de internet o como lo conocemos a través de nuestros teléfonos celulares o las diferentes plataformas en las que operamos. También ha lanzado contenido digital a través de televisión por satélite, consolas de videojuegos, internet de banda ancha, televisión interactiva y redes móviles. Por favor, les pido innovación. Un aplauso muy grande para Robert Tercek y su presentación Inventando el Futuro.
Hi there. Thank you for having me here in your beautiful country. I'm so happy to be in Colombia. It's a cool country. As Tuya told you, I'm working on a project now. It's a new show called Inventing the Future. I'm inspired by the words of a computer scientist named Alan Kay. And he said the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And I think that's a really powerful slogan. It's a really powerful idea. I made it my motto, and I think you should make it yours as well. Because the future is ours to create. Over my career, I've had this incredible opportunity. I've flown around the world to launch projects with companies in every part of the world. And I've worked with some incredible people. And on my show, I get to interview them, and I learn about the new technologies, the new things that are coming from science that are going to change the world that we live in. So for instance, one of the topics that I'm very interested in is 3D printing. I know you know about it, you've heard about it. It was a big story last year. And in fact, 3D printing has been around for quite a while. It's been around since the 1960s. What's new and what's different and what made it newsworthy is that last year, 3D printers became affordable for regular people. We could purchase one. The price of a 3D printer last year dropped below $2,000, and this year they cost about $1,000. Today, a 3D printer costs less than a laser printer cost in 1985. And if you think about that, back in the 1980s, we had this phenomenon of desktop publishing that would change the print industry, it would change the publication business. And that happened, that occurred, that took place. In the last 20 years, we've seen a radical transformation of the print industry. And so now many people think with 3D printing, we're going to move from desktop publishing to desktop manufacturing. So that's the promise of 3D printing. But if you've checked out a 3D printer, maybe you have one or you've used one, You probably know that they don't quite work as well as we wish they would right now. They're still very early, and this technology is very, very early. The promise is that we'll be able to manufacture products at home on our desktop. The reality is that today you can only make very small objects with these devices. It takes a lot of effort. It's almost a hobbyist skill. It's something as a hobby. It's not really practical for a business at home yet. But there are some incredible changes coming. People are able to use 3D scanners to scan real objects and print versions of them. There is a company called D-Shape, and they are printing entire buildings, two-story buildings, shapes that you couldn't build with normal construction methods. And they're using a giant 3D printer. You can see that big beam that goes across. That's the printer arm. And so it takes them 6 weeks, but they can build an entire building with a 3D printer. There's an open source project in Chicago to build a 3D printed car as well. So you can imagine the future potential of this technology. And there are some incredible things that are happening right now in the laboratory. For instance, do you know what this is? This picture on the screen. It's an ugly looking thing. This is a human jaw. It's a replacement for a human jaw. If you know about bone surgery, you know that the jaw is one of the most difficult pieces of the human body to replace in surgery. And it can be very painful. Now, with 3D printing, they can take a scan of your face and they can make an anatomically precise jaw, an exact fit for your face. And then they put new teeth in, and then that person, after that surgery, they have the same jawline. Their face looks the same. So if you have this surgery, this is an incredibly great benefit from 3D printing. It doesn't stop there. This is a human liver. This is a human organ that was produced in a laboratory in Japan on a bioprinter, a 3D printer for human cells. It can print human skin cells. Now, this does not work yet. This liver is a prototype. It may take 10 years before they can get it to work exactly right. But that's a very promising future for us. That someday in the future, if you need to have a body part replaced, an organ or a joint, you'll be able to make one that's precise for your body, that uses your own skin tissue, your own cells, and your body won't reject it. And they predict that within the next 10 years, they'll even be able to print a replacement heart for people. So this is one of the most amazing new technologies that is coming, but it's not the only one. There are breakthroughs happening all over right now. For instance, in material science, there are new materials coming every day. You've heard about graphene. Graphene is a new breakthrough material. This is a new one. This is called nanocellulose, and I learned about it a couple of months ago. Nanocellulose, as you can see, it's a gel or a liquid that's transparent, and it has some amazing properties. It's stronger than steel, lighter than carbon fiber, stiffer than Kevlar. It's bulletproof. When you paint it on something, it becomes bulletproof. It's transparent. Light can come through it. It can conduct electricity, and it can conduct an electrical signal. And it's also cheap and sustainable because it comes from trees. There are 3 factories in North America that are making this new, incredible material today. There are great breakthroughs happening in material science. And there's one more area that I'm passionate about, and this is the new field of synthetic biology. Ever since we sequenced the human genome, and that project ended in 2001, and by 2003, we had started to perfect the technology to read human DNA. Now today, the price of sequencing a human genome has dropped tremendously in price and in speed. But now scientists are also able to write human DNA. And there are a group of biologists now who are writing DNA. They're programming biology at the cellular level. They're programming new life. They're creating new organisms by writing new DNA on computers. In other words, they're programming organisms the same way a computer scientist would program a computer. This is an incredible breakthrough, and it means that we'll soon be able to have new medicines. We'll be able to generate new fuels synthetically with biology, algae that can grow fuels, and other new materials. So there's some great breakthroughs happening. And the reason I share these with you is partly because I want you to see what I see about this future, this incredible potential in the future. But it's also that we're starting to reprogram the world. We're taking an approach to the world that's different from the past. Now we see that humanity has the wisdom, the knowledge, the insight, and the tools to reprogram the world the same way that we program a computer. What all these things have in common is this idea. We're turning information into things. So we're taking computer science, we're taking digital information, and we're creating new physical things. And that's an incredible skill. That's an incredible breakthrough. And you see it in many fields now. Those are just some of the examples. But as amazing as that is, that's not the thing I'm here to tell you about today. That's just one cool starting point. I want to tell you about something that's even more amazing. And that's the idea that we're taking things, physical things, and turning those into information. And you can see these two ideas fit together quite nicely, right? On the one hand, we're taking information and creating new physical things. On the other hand, we're taking physical things in the world and turning them into information. That's what this talk is about. I'm going to explain what I mean by that idea for the rest of this talk. The term I use for it is vaporized. We're taking physical things and turning them into vapor, turning them into atmosphere, into digital information that's available to a mobile phone or a tablet or a laptop computer anywhere. Let me tell you about this from my own personal experience. In 2000, I led the team that created video for mobile phones. There was a company called Packet Video, and I led that team around the world. We launched video on mobile phones in 40 different places around the world. Now, the idea of video on a phone back in 2000 was a crazy idea. It was a preposterous idea. Everywhere I went in the world, people would say to me, "Rob, this is crazy. It's preposterous. It doesn't make any sense. Video belongs on a TV. Music belongs on a stereo. The telephone, that's for your voice. Why would you put video on a phone? And besides, who wants to carry a television around with them?" People thought we were crazy at the time, and they told us it would never work. They said it'll never possibly happen. Well, I have some interesting news for you. Just a few months ago, President Obama was re-elected in the United States, and he had a ball to celebrate his inauguration, his second inauguration. And you may have seen some of these photographs, and you may have seen that many people in the audience were using their mobile phones, their smartphones, to record video. So you probably saw some of these pictures in the news, and you probably didn't think much about it. But there's one photograph that's astounding. It's astonishing. It's this one. You see, it wasn't just that the people in the front of the room were shooting video with their phones. Everybody in the room was using their smartphone. Every person present is using their video. The smartphone has turned us all into producers of video, producers of photographs, producers of media. Mobile puts me in media. It puts me in charge of creating and publishing and distributing content. That's a power that previously was not available to everyone. Today, anybody with a smartphone can be a broadcaster. That's an incredible transformation, and you're starting to see it make great changes. Let me share some of those ideas with you. So this idea of video on a phone was crazy 10 years ago. Today it's commonplace. We use it to talk to our kids when we're traveling. We use it to take videos of our families when we're out frolicking, when we're having an adventure, on a vacation. With apps like ooVoo, 12 people can chat simultaneously. You have video conferencing on a smartphone anywhere in the world. Now it's common for people to record concerts and live events when they go to a place. Maybe somebody's recording video here and streaming it out to the internet. When we go skiing, diving, skydiving, we now record video of these moments and we post it on YouTube. And that's not all. In Afghanistan, US soldiers are now clipping cameras on their helmets, and they're recording video from the front lines, something that you've never been able to see before in history. And if you look on YouTube, you'll find hundreds of these videos, combat videos from the front lines. And if you look hard enough, you can find videos from the Taliban on the other side shooting back at them. This is a view of the world that we've never had before. We're starting to see the world through other people's eyes. We get to experience the world the way they experience it. And this video on mobile phones has a very powerful effect. It starts to have a political effect. We saw this in Tahrir Square in Egypt. We saw this in North Africa, in the Maghreb, during the Arab Spring. And we saw it this week in Istanbul, in Turkey, where people are using their smartphones to record video that shows government oppression and violence. It shows police brutality. People are becoming journalists, and they're sharing information that we never otherwise could have seen before. And people find out about this instantly. In Turkey, this week, in 24 hours, a small protest in Taksim Square, in just one section of Istanbul, In 24 hours, that was broadcast through social media across all of Turkey, and protests then emerged in 80 other cities in Turkey, across the entire country in 24 hours. People are using this video to communicate new ideas. People are using this video to expose government corruption. They're using it to expose government police brutality. It's an extraordinary time. We're starting to see things that we never could have seen. Just a couple of months ago, this video was recorded in a remote part of Egypt. Isn't that working? Okay. This video was recorded in a remote part of Siberia in Russia. It's a video that shows a meteorite passing through the sky. And the reason we get to see this video is that many people in Russia drive around with cameras on the dashboard of their car. So many Russian people are using video on their cars all the time. And they're using that because the insurance companies like to see the video if there's an accident. And so there wasn't just one video recorded. In fact, if you look on YouTube, you'll see there were dozens of videos recorded of this meteorite. Now that's an event that never otherwise could have been recorded on video. It never would have happened before because you couldn't get a video crew out there in time. It happens in an instant and it's over. But now we have not one, but dozens of videos of that magic moment. So some amazing things are starting to happen with mobile media. Transformative things. The first thing you'll notice with the rapid take-up of smartphones in the world is that now a news service can reach rapid scale. It can reach gigantic global scale very, very quickly. Let me give you an example. How many people in the room know about these apps for the smartphone? SocialCam, Flock, you probably have heard about Vine. Have any of you started to use these apps? Yeah, great. So about half the people in the room. That's right. Right on. Cool. So here's an amazing chart. This chart is from 1 year ago. It shows you the growth between the month of April and May. In 1 month, SocialCam and Vidi went from 0 users to 40 million users in 1 month. That's the rapid scale. Because you have so many people using smartphones and they're telling each other what applications to download, what things are cool to use, and so on. This social media marketing drives rapid take-up. And because you simply have to click one button on your phone to download the app, you have it instantly in your hands. And so we're seeing, this is a transformative effect. You've never seen a business go from 0 to 40 million in 1 month before, but now it's quite common. The next idea is decentralization. And this is really about the loss of control by big companies. So if you think about the media of the past, broadcasting and print, well, really that was about very small numbers of people having a lot of power over what you read and what you consumed. But our mobile devices now are giving us the ability to download information to our phones and then beam it over, project it onto a television set or another display. So we can now manage media on our own terms. That means that the power has shifted from central programming out to the end user. That's a gigantic shift in power. And there's also opportunities for disruption, massive amounts of disruption occurring because of the smartphone. One way it's happening is that we're virtualizing things. Here's an example. So if you've seen the Apple TV device from Apple, you know that it connects your smartphone and your tablet to your television set, and you can share media across, you can pass media back and forth from one to another. That could be very disruptive for the game industry. Right now, Sony and Microsoft want to launch new console games, the brand new consoles that are coming out this year. And they're in great jeopardy because these small devices, like the Apple TV, in a way, they can vaporize or replace the need to purchase a separate device to play games. You can simply download games to your phone and beam them to your television set. There's a new technology called cloud paging that would allow you to stream a game to your mobile phone or to your tablet. You no longer need to buy a game console. So these are some of the trends, some of the disruptive trends that are happening. But there's one that's really important. I talked about it a minute ago. I'm going to refer to it now. Transformation of the audience. So these technologies change us. They don't just change media. They don't just change business. They change us as users. I said that mobile puts me in the media. Look at this chart. Here you see the people who are using photos and video on their mobile phones. So when people purchase mobile phones, when people purchase a smartphone, when they trade in their standard mobile phone and they turn it into a smartphone, what happens is that they turn into creators of video, right? They turn into creators of photographs. You can see here in red, I've circled age 18 to 29, 70% of the people with smartphones are using them to create and post videos. And in the next age group, 30 to 49, half the people are using the smartphone to create video. So this has transformed the audience from a passive consumer of video to an active creator and publisher of video. We're producing an astonishing amount of content. Every 60 seconds, 250,000 photos are uploaded to Facebook, 700,000 status updates, 125,000 tweets, 700,000 search inquiries, and an astounding 100 hours of video uploaded every minute of the day to YouTube. So the sheer size and volume of the billion people who are using smartphones is starting to change the amount of video that we have, the amount of content that we get to consume. It's also changing our habit in the living room. When we watch TV, 77% of the people who have a smartphone or a tablet are also using that device while they're watching TV. That's got a gigantic effect on the television companies right now. Just in the last 2 months in the United States, the big broadcasters have been talking to advertisers, and the new message, their new motto is multi-platform TV, because they're trying to span all of these different devices with their TV programming. So television is about to change tremendously. But the main message here is that the audience has changed. These technologies change us. Have you watched a little child play with a tablet computer? Have you seen someone who's maybe a 5-year-old, your child or your niece or nephew or someone's child? You watch them with a tablet computer and they figure it out in just a couple of minutes. They're touching and clicking and they're moving things around and they see that it responds to touch and they understand this on an intuitive level. When that audience grows up, they're going to have an expectation that every screen is going to respond to them that way. And when those children walk away from the tablet and walk over to a TV set, they start to touch the TV screen and they say it's broken because it doesn't respond to them that way. So this new generation is going to grow up with an expectation that all media will respond to them. All media will be something that they can manage and control and manipulate on their own terms. If you're in the broadcasting business or the media business, I urge you to make room for the 2 billion, 2.5 billion people who are using social media today. And perhaps you're not sure what they should do. What role can they possibly play? Well, you're limited only by your imagination, because there are an unlimited number of roles that you can create for your audience to participate in a meaningful way in your programming. If you have fans that really want to engage in your content, you can make them correspondents who share stories. You can make them curators who edit the stories and make maybe a playlist of videos or a selection of articles. If there's someone who's very active in your community, you can turn them into a community moderator. You can give them some status to manage that community. So you can empower the audience to behave and to engage and participate in a meaningful way. I think it's extremely important for media companies to master this skill. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about this idea of vaporized. I talked about it a minute ago. I mentioned it. Now I'm going to really explain what I mean by vaporized. Turning things into smoke, turning things into atmosphere. When we use that term, typically vaporized, usually you think of a science fiction story, right? You think about a science fiction movie where someone shoots a ray gun at something. And when they shoot the ray gun, the object that they pointed at, it disintegrates. It's gone in a puff of smoke. Well, today, we're making a lot of things disappear into a puff of smoke, but you don't need a ray gun to do it. All you need is a smartphone. At Packet Video, the company where I worked, where we made the video for mobile phones, we vaporized the camera. We vaporized all the technology and tools that you needed to record video. So we turned that into software. And you could say that the mobile phone has also vaporized the TV set, because the screen on your smartphone is as good as the TV screen. It's the same resolution. Sometimes it's higher resolution than the TV screen. So the theme of vaporized is really about turning things, physical things, into invisible software that can be downloaded. Now, we all know from science class as children that matter exists in 3 states. As a solid, where the atoms are tightly packed. As a liquid, where the atoms flow and move around. And as a vapor, where the atoms are very dispersed. They're not packed together at all, and they move very quickly. Well, I believe information exists in all 3 states as well. Let me explain what I mean. You see, until fairly recently, there was only one way for you to share information, and that was to put it into some physical form. You could tell someone, you could speak to them, but that didn't really scale to a large audience. If you wanted to reach a large audience, you needed to publish the information in the form of a book
or in some kind of fixed media. So you had to take the ideas and the information and turn them into some physical object. And that was the case for the past several thousand years. Until fairly recently, we created digital networks. And what I'm going to tell you about next is how information took on the attributes of a liquid when it goes into a digital network. And then most recently, we introduced mobile networks. And in a mobile network, information takes on the attribute of a vapor or a gas. It's freely available, it's abundant, and it moves quickly. If you think about the last 200 years, the last 100 years, the story of human civilization in the last 100 years has been the story of building massive infrastructure, factories all over the world to build consumer products. So in the first half of the century, it happened in the West. In the second half of the century, we industrialized the rest of the world. So we built these gigantic factories. And then once we built the factories, we built gigantic supply chains, distribution chains, ports, and roads. And we built storage facilities, warehouses, and logistics centers to store all the goods that were moving around through the world. And of course, we built giant shopping centers and malls to hold the billions of consumer products that we manufactured. So this is the story of the last 100 years. What most people have done with their lives is make products or move those products around. In other words, most of humanity was focused on making physical things. That's what we did with most of our time. But there are some problems with this idea of making information and physical products. The first thing is that these solids are very heavy, and it takes a lot of energy to move them around, and they consume a great deal of material. The second problem is that these solids are very slow. It's very slow to move goods from China over to the Americas. It takes weeks. And if tastes change, if the consumer preference changes, you can't turn that ship around and send it back to China. The boat is still going to have to come over, and you're going to have to sell those goods. And so you're kind of stuck. And so you